Hello and welcome to Pixel Magic Tutorials. I am your host Geekman, and today I'm going to teach you how to create elegant glass text in Photoshop. Now, a couple of assumptions right off the bat. The first one being that you're using Photoshop CC 2015 or later. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, some of the effects may not work as expected. Second, I'm using Windows, so if you're using a Mac, when I say hit the Control key on your keyboard, that means hit the Command key. And when I say hit the Alt key on the keyboard, that means hit the Option key. With that out of the way, let's get started by creating a brand new image. And let's hit Control N on the keyboard, and that brings up your new image dialog box. Now let's name this Elegant Glass Text, and we're going to be doing our standard size for tutorials, which is 3840 pixels by 2160 pixels at 150 pixels per inch, RGB color 8-bit. Background contents don't matter. Could be anything. We're going to be changing it. Color profile is Adobe RGB 1998, and pixel aspect ratio is square pixels. Once you're all done, hit OK, and we're ready to begin. Now, normally I would create a background, but for this, I'm just going to pick one from the web, put it in here so that we can get right to the actual text. So I'm just going to pull in one from off screen here and drop it in. And then I'm just going to resize it. Oops. Then I'm just going to resize it to fill the screen and move it up so that we get more color in the center. Hit OK. Now feel free to use any background that you want, but this tutorial is really centered on the text itself. Now I have a link in the description below should you need a background and you want to use the one that I'm using. Second thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that our foreground and background colors are black and white, the default black and white. So we can do that by hitting D on the keyboard or by clicking on this tiny little black and white square here, which will reset our foreground and background to black and white. Once we're done with that, we're going to select our text tool and we're going to work with whatever font we want to use. A note here is that this elegant glass text effect works best with thin fonts. So things like script fonts or something thin like Helvetica or Arial, those work. Thicker, bolder fonts, heavy fonts, this effect doesn't work well. You need to use a different effect. And if people like this elegant glass effect, I can show you in a later video how to create thicker, bigger looking font glass text. So for this tutorial though, we're going to be using a nice thin elegant font, which I have as Dancing Script OT. Again, I have a link in the description below where you can find this. I'm using it at 400 points, sharp, centered. The color doesn't matter. It will change using our layer styles. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click anywhere here, and we're going to get our text tool ready to go. And we're going to write down what we want our text to be. In my case, as always, it is Pixel Magic. Once you have the text in, you want to make sure that everything lines up the way that you want. So for example, this P is a little far away from the I for me, so I'm going to adjust the kerning by putting my cursor in between the P and the I, and then holding down Alt on the keyboard and using my left and right arrow keys, I can then make the spacing bigger and smaller. I think that looks pretty good, and then I'll go over here because the M is far away from the A, and using Alt and the left arrow key, I can move that closer together as well. So to me, this looks pretty good. Let's hit OK up here, the little check mark, and we now have our text. Going back to our Move tool, that's V on the keyboard, we will then move this more towards the center, just to make things easier for you, my audience, to see. Okay, so really all that we have to do for this is set our fill opacity for our text layer to 0. So it will go away. That's why the font color didn't matter. And then the entire effect is contained within layer styles. So all we're really going to be doing is adjusting our layer styles to look the way that we want our layer to look. So let's go down here, and we're going to go first to Bevel and Emboss. Now, what we need to do here is we need to make the style an inner bevel. We need to make the technique smooth. The depth is going to be 615%. The direction is going to be up. The size is going to be 18. The softening is going to be 0. Angle is going to be turning off, use global light. Make sure you do that. We're going to do 135. Altitude is going to be 55. Okay, then the gloss contour that you see here is going to be ring double. And that is this guy right here. It looks like higher mountains right here. That is ring double. We're going to make sure that that is checked. Anti-Aliased is going to be checked. The highlight mode is going to be color dodge. So we're going to go down to color dodge. The color that we're using is going to be all white, which is ffffff. And the opacity that we're using here is going to be 85%. Down here in shadow mode, we are going to use multiply. The color is going to be all black, which is 0,00000. And the opacity that we are using here is going to be 65%. And that begins to give us the look of kind of plastic, not really glass. But adding in a few more layer styles here is going to give us the glass effect. So the next thing that we need to do is go down here to contour. Okay, and we're going to make the contour itself is going to be cone inverted, which I believe is this guy right here. Let's find out. Cone inverted, just like that. And then we're going to make anti-alias is going to be checked, and our range here is going to stay at 50%. Next thing that we're going to do is going to be a stroke. The stroke that we're using here is going to be a size of 10. We're going to make the position inside. We're going to make the blend mode is going to be overlay down here. Then we're going to make the opacity down here is going to be 55%. Overprint is going to be checked. Fill type is going to be color, and the color that we're using is going to be pure white, which is all Fs. Okay, you begin to see it's looking kind of like glass, but there's still more to do. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do an inner glow. So we go down here to inner glow, and we're going to go to blend mode is going to be pin light, which is down here under the overlay area. Opacity is going to be 45%, and noise is going to be 0. The color that we are using is going to be all white, which is Fs, so ffffff. And then we're going to go down here to technique, and it's going to be softer. Source will be edge. Choke is going to be 0, and size is going to be 9. Then we're going to go down to this contour, which is going to really help, and we're going to make this cone. Now, cone looks like this. Okay, it's the hump one here in the middle. Let's see cone pop up. There it is. You click on that, and you get cone. Then we're going to go down here to anti-alias is checked. Range is going to be 25. And jitter is 0. Next up, we're going to add a little bit of satin. All right, that's blend mode for satin is going to be linear light. So let's find linear light right here. The color that we're using for our satin is going to be a different color, not pure black. It's going to be D7, D7, D7. So kind of a very, very, very light gray. And then we're going to make the opacity here 60%. Okay, the angle that we're using is going to be 113. The distance that we're using will be 25, and the size is going to be 18. The contour that we're using for this is going to be cone again, so we go back to cone. Anti-aliased is checked. Invert will be unchecked. And that's all we need for satin. Then we're going to need 2 drop shadows. Now, if you've only got one, let me erase this one just so that you can see what we've got here. We'll throw that guy away. Drop shadow. So here we have our drop shadow. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a blend mode of normal. We're going to make the color is going to be pure black. Make sure it's all zeros. Opacity for this will be 15%, so that's 1.5. Angle is going to be 135. Use global light is unchecked. Distance is going to be 30. like so. Spread is going to be 0 and size is going to be 21. Then the contour over here is going to be ring double, which is this two-humped guy right here. Anti-Aliased is going to be checked. Noise is going to be 0, and layer knocks out drop shadow will be checked. Now, I've only got one drop shadow. You make another one by clicking on the little plus icon here, and that duplicates the shadow. So then you start with all the same options as you had in the first shadow. So you go down here to the second shadow, and we will make this mode darken, like that. The color is going to stay black, so leave that alone. Opacity is going to stay at 15%. Angle at 135 is the same. Use global light is still unchecked. Distance is going to be 21. Spread is going to be 0. Size here is 29. Then we're going to use the contour is still ring double. Anti-alias is now unchecked. Noise is going to be 0, and layer knocks out drop shadow is checked. And that right there is elegant glass text. And since it's all contained within the layer style, it is completely editable. So you can change this to whatever text you want it to be. So there you have it, elegant glass text using a single text layer and layer styles. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. I put up new tutorials every Tuesday. Once again, this is Geekman signing off for Pixel Magic Tutorials.